The following episode of Discussing Who is made possible thanks in part to Bombshell Comics and Stuff. Bombshell is located in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. This episode is also made possible thanks to each and every one of our subscribers and listeners. Send us your feedback to discussingwho@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter at DiscussingWho and on Facebook. The first Saturday of May has become known to comic book fans as Free Comic Book Day. In this episode, we will sit down and talk briefly with Justin Adcock, who is the owner of Bombshell Comics and Stuff. We'll discuss some of the titles that will be available this Saturday in 2016. We will also hint at Captain America Civil War, and we'll talk a little bit about DC Comics Rebirth, and just give a little idea of what we might expect or want to see coming out of that event. Welcome to episode 6 of Discussing Who. All right, we are back, and before we get started on our next topic, I am talking to someone that I've actually known for quite a while, and when I moved to Richland, this gentleman was one of the reasons I didn't want to leave Hattiesburg. So I want to introduce Justin Adcock. He is the owner of Bombshell Comics and Stuff in Hattiesburg. He's only got a few minutes with us tonight, but I wanted to introduce him real quick. Justin, glad to have you on.
Glad to be on, Kyle. It's good to talk to you, man. We haven't talked in a while.
Absolutely. I miss my every Wednesday coming in. So I know you don't have much time. So why don't you tell everybody, in case they happen to be listening, they happen to live in Mississippi, and better yet, they happen to be in Hattiesburg, where will you be tomorrow night, at what time, and what will you be doing?
We'll be at the Grand Theater starting about 6:30 p.m. for the early showings of Captain America Civil War. That's going to be tomorrow, Thursday night. And we'll be handing out flyers for our Free Comic Book Day, as well as some free promotional comic books and magazines. And we always bring some merchandise we set up on the table so everybody can get an idea of some of the odds and ends we carry at the shop.
All right, cool.
So Justin, I guess it brings us to our next question. What is Free Comic Book Day? I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory, but give us your short of it.
Free Comic Book Day is an annual event. It's nationwide. It's something that is promoted by pretty much the entire comic book industry. Publishers sponsor different titles by agreeing to publish, up to a certain number. They sell those to comic shops at a discounted price with the understanding that we will give them away for free, completely free of charge. So there's a little bit of cost on the front end, but it's always for a good cause. Free Comic Book Day winds up being something that is successful. It is usually as successful as what you put into it. So if you make it an event, it will be that much more of an event on that occasion. So we always try and have a real knockdown, drag-out time. We have a really good Free Comic Book Day every year. It's very well attended. It's kind of become its own thing. You really don't have to advertise as much as we used to, because now people just know the first Saturday of May, Bombshell Comics is going to have a rocking good time.
All right. Well, look, we're not going to keep you any longer, but here's what we want. We want to follow up with you after Free Comic Book Day. Let us know how it went. What did you meet expectations? Did you exceed? And all that good stuff. But I won't keep you any longer. I want you to get Civil War under your belt, because I have a feeling that you might enjoy that a little bit better than Superman Batman.
Yeah, I think so. Looking forward to it.
All right. Well, look, like I said, we want to have you back on and talk a little bit more and enjoy the movie. And we are back. We have just been talking with Justin Adcock of Bombshell Comics and Stuff in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and he will be joining us on a future episode, kind of giving a summary of what is Free Comic Book Day and how his Free Comic Book Day, for his store at least, went. So I'm looking forward to talking about that and hearing more about that. So let me ask you, Clarence, tell me, what do you know about Free Comic Book Day other than what Justin just talked about?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I haven't had much experience with it. I can't say that I've gone to one. I believe I've passed by a few and seen like things like Star Wars troopers out there and Wookiees. I've seen things like that, but I can honestly say I've never participated in one, unfortunately. So, yeah, my experience is small at best. What about yourself? Have you participated in Free Comic Book Day at all? Or?
I've been to one. It was one at Justin's store, and I think I went to another one. I can't. Yeah. I did. I've been to two with Justin's store. The last one I went to, I had a Doctor Who book, a Marvel book, a DC book, and something else that I was getting, and then there was something else that I was buying, and I waited in line probably 45 minutes to an hour just to get checked out. So
that's crazy.
Yep. And I mean, there were people outside, there was people inside, and this was at his old location. So, I could only imagine now that he's got more space, exactly how many people have shown up. So
is this basically the Black Friday of comic books? Can you speak to that? Is it normally? Well, I know it's more people in than normal, but is it like much more than you would see like during the holiday season or things like that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, first off, you get a free comic book. I mean, is every comic book free? No. Obviously, you couldn't sell the store or give the store away, but not every comic book company participates, but what happens is, let's say Marvel has a movie that they are promoting, which generally it ties in some manner or fashion with one of the Marvel movies, or that's kind of how it got started. But, they tie in a movie, or there's an event coming up, or whatever the case may be. They've got a free comic out, and that's part of what Free Comic Book Day is. It may be Archie Comics, it may be DC, it may be a comic publisher, that I've never heard of. But anybody can come in. They've got free copies. They give away things. They do drawings. Just the idea, I think, in my opinion, is to generate interest, because if you get people coming in, they get something for free, they get hooked in the genre a little bit. That's an incentive to come in and read.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy that we see comic book stores, fall into a niche and still kind of survive in an age where most book-based stores are kind of falling by the wayside. But it seems that these comic book shops are still kind of holding on and still thriving.
Right. And, I think it's a way for a comic book shop to diversify and, get people who wouldn't normally come in. And, not every comic shop it's not a mandate that you have to participate. And you may have shop number A and city number A or city A just have nothing but the free comics that are available out there on the shelf. You may have another one who does the contest for best costume and drawings every hour. So it all depends, and I've heard Justin say this before, it all depends on the retailer and what he or she wants to do.
Awesome.
So let me ask you this. If you were to suggest someone go to Free Comic Book Day, how would you say, hey, you need to go to Free Comic Book Day? Because a lot of people would have some of the questions that you and I just asked. What's your thoughts?
Well, no, I mean, I would just give my perspective. If somebody suggested it to me, I guess I would kind of know like what quality of comics that are free. Because when I think free, I think of the ones that nobody wants. And is that the case? Do you really know if it's I know you mentioned the movie exclusive thing. Like when the movie's coming out, it falls in line with Free Comic Book Day. Do you know what type of comics are normally given for free, or is it?
Again, I think it's more of an event type book. This is 2016, so I'll give you just an idea of just a few. Civil War II. There is an Avengers Free Comic Book Day 2016 edition that's promoting the Civil War II comic. That's kind of as a result of the Captain America Civil War. There's Doctor Who comic that is Free Comic Book Day 2016 that will have a special edition featuring not one, not two, not three, but four doctors.
Well, that's kind of all you had to tell me right there.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm looking at the cover for Doctor Who, and you've got Capaldi front and center, but in the back you've got Matt Smith, Eccleston, and David Tennant. So,
the new guys.
Yep, all four of the new. And speaking of the 4th, we are recording this on May the 4th. So there was something I think you wanted to say to everybody.
Yeah, May the 4th be with you guys.
Yep. May Tom Baker be with you.
That 4th, huh?
Exactly. That's my 4th. So nothing taken away from Star Wars in any shape, form, or fashion. Looking still through some of the books, we've got Suicide Squad from DC.
Awesome.
Valiant Comics has Valiant 4001 AD. Then looking further, there's a Captain America Free Comic Book Edition. And continuing on, there's a variety of everything from Pink Panther to Science Comics to Sonic Sampler to SpongeBob and Strawberry Shortcake. So literally, you go from Suicide Squad to Strawberry Shortcake.
So something for everybody is what you're saying.
Right, a little bit, because you've got something for adults and you've got something for preteen or even younger than that. So yeah, there's quite a bit out there. And go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. Go right ahead. Right ahead.
What I did want to say is, anybody listening, if you want to find out more about Free Comic Book Day or to locate a participating store in your area, you can go to www.freecomicbookday.com. Again, that's www.freecomicbookday.com. So let me ask you, I know you're not a heavy reader in comics yourself, so are there any comics that you're reading or that you're excited about or looking forward to or anything like that?
Well, it's kind of like I'm on the outside looking in a lot when I think of just the comic universe. Because, I've talked about this with you before. Kind of the thing that discourages me the most when I try to get into comics or really think about getting into them is, like, there's so many iterations and different books. Which one do I want to read? Do I have to follow different books to follow this storyline? How does this tangled web diverge back and forth into each other? So I think that was kind of my biggest deterrent from ever getting into comics like I probably should have. In the late 90s, I kind of followed Spider-Man for probably a year. I bought most of the comics for that year, and I followed your hated Ben Reilly saga. So that was kind of my last dive into comics as far as trying to really get them in and really keep up with the storylines. And then we started getting comic book movies, so I kind of just got lazy. What about yourself?
Well, while I was listening to you talk, one thing that I was reminded of was, I was sitting here thinking about when I would read the X-Men, and the X-Men was singular, meaning there was Uncanny X-Men. It came out once a month, and it felt like an event when you read it. Over now, even with the X-Men's diminished capacity in the Marvel universe now, you've still got All New X-Men, Uncanny X-Men, Extraordinary X-Men. So, and each of them have a different, team. And,
Uh-huh.
So I get where you're coming from in the sense of it feels a little bit watered down. And the same could be said about the Avengers. They have, Avengers, New Avengers. So there's, I guess you could say something for everybody. But on the flip side, I miss the days when if somebody joined the Avengers, it was a big deal. If somebody joined the X-Men, it was a big deal. Not you couldn't keep up with who was on the teams.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, again, for me, just being a deterrent to even get into them, and that's still more me. I don't blame the comic books. That's more me. I'm the same way with just a television show. I want to see every show before I get caught up with the new thing. Sort of like that's that's also been my deterrent with getting into the Flash and Arrow. I want to see it all, so I can't kind of just start watching.
And to piggyback off of what you just said, I was listening to our previous episode when we were talking about the Superman, Batman, and going back and forth of who liked it and who didn't like it. And one of the things that I compliment Marvel for is the way they've weaved together and created their own version of the 1960s in this new generation. And what I mean by that is you took creating the Fantastic Four, creating the X-Men, creating the Avengers, Hulk, and their own separate appearances, and then started weaving them together back in the 60s. You've done that on the big screen by having Tony Stark appear in 3 Tony Stark or 3 Iron Man movies, 2 Avengers movies, and I've read that he will also be in the new Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, so, that was awesome. I heard that as well.
And he's going to be in Civil War, which is technically Captain America 3, if you look at it from that perspective. And even though it's Captain America Civil War and that's the title of it, you've got all the Avengers in there. So
yeah. People are saying it's the best Avengers movie out. So early reviewers.
Yep, I've read that, and I think it's going to be a lot different if you look at it from the perspective of comparing it to DC. And don't get me wrong, I want DC to succeed. I just don't get that same warm fuzzy feeling.
Yeah, and by the same token, DC really hasn't had time to do it in the same way. I mean, of course, you mentioned earlier we're having Suicide. Well, you mentioned comic, but we are having a Suicide Squad coming up, and I just hope they don't make a mess of the opportunity. But right now is not looking bright.
No, and I'm looking now. One thing that I am looking forward to, speaking of DC and bringing us back into the realm of comic books, there's something coming out on May the 25th. It's called DC Rebirth, and this may be something we'll talk about in detail in with Lee in an upcoming episode. But I'm really, really looking forward to Rebirth because in the last 5 years, I think DC has lost its way a bit from the comic perspective, and I'm hoping Rebirth will basically do what the word says and give it a rebirth.
So is this supposed to be a whole nother full reboot event, or is it just kind of taking characters in a different direction?
I really don't know. To kind of give you a background of where the Rebirth tagline came from, if you want to call it that, and I don't have the dates in front of me, but technically back in the late 90s, early 2000s, you took Hal Jordan, Green Lantern, and basically made a villain out of him. He wound up killing a whole bunch of Green Lanterns. He went crazy and became a villain called Parallax. Well, when that happened, they created a character called Kyle Rayner, who became the last surviving Green Lantern for many, many years. Well, with just having Kyle and with Hal being a villain, you've ultimately killed him off. And I think it was called Final Night that they killed Hal off in. They brought him back, and again, don't remember how, but they brought him back, and it was called Green Lantern Rebirth. And they went through. It was written by Jeff Johns. It was very good. It explained why he became a villain. It added layers to the whole Green Lantern story, to the whole Green Lantern universe, and redeemed him as a character. Then a couple of years ago, they decided, hey, it's now time to bring Barry Allen back, because Barry Allen had been effectively dead since 1985's Crisis. So I think it was about 2007, 2008, they decided we're going to bring Barry Allen back, and they called that Flash Rebirth. Well, this is DC Rebirth, and it will hopefully restore some of the things that have been stripped away with the New 52 over the last 5 years. Yeah, because it was September 2011 that they rebooted with the New 52.
So are in both of those cases, are they bringing them back from the dead, so to speak, or they're finding some cataclysmic event to make them somehow still be alive?
Well, when the Flash died, he went into the Speed Force, and I, again, just talking off the top of my head, don't remember, but I believe he came back from the Speed Force is how they brought him back in Rebirth. With Hal Jordan, honestly, off the top of my head, I can't remember how they brought him back. But I obviously do know that they did bring him back and redeemed him while they did it. So
awesome.
And I really, really hope that with DC Rebirth that they restore some of the characters that they got rid of. The entire Wonder Woman story that they did, I just wasn't a fan of, and I'm really, really hoping that, like I said, they restore some of these things. So, with that said, do you have anything else that you'd like to talk about?
Nothing at the moment. I'll just encourage everybody to get out. Is it this Saturday?
It is this Saturday. It is the first Saturday in May, and we were talking about before, we are on May the 4th, 2016. So I know that some of you may be listening years down the road. So not necessarily this Saturday, but this particular Saturday if you're living in 2016. Yes.
If you're in the Hattiesburg area, check out is it Bombshell Comics and Stuff, and that's facebook.com/comics and stuff.
Right. And, I want to also give a shout out, since we're living in Ridgeland now. The one that I am visiting now is Comic Commander, and that is on 51 in Ridgeland, on Highway 51 going to Madison. And they will have free comic book day as well. But, if you are definitely in Hattiesburg, check out Bombshell Comics and Stuff. And also follow us online. You can follow us on Twitter at discussingwho.com, on our website at www.discussingwho.com, and also on Facebook as well at Facebook.com/discussingwho. We appreciate it. And Clarence, if you don't have anything else, I think we're about finished.
Yeah, let's wrap it.
I think it's wrapping. And if anyone is wondering where Lee Shackelford is, we've not forgotten about him. We've sent him on a secret mission to stand outside between now and Friday to buy tickets for the Captain America Civil War. So if you see someone that is standing outside and he looks like Lee Shackelford, guess what? He might actually be Lee Shackelford. So, All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening, and thank you again, Justin Adcock, for joining us. And we look forward to following back up with you to find out more about Free Comic Book Day 2016 and how your Free Comic Book Day 2016 went. So thank you all for listening, and we will be back soon. Thank you.